And that's when he was found playing with this bundle of sticks that this thing supposedly made him.
That is the weird story. Yeah, weird. So weird.
So, that's an interesting story to come out about Missing 411. And, God, if you were just one reality away from something, almost close enough to touch, would you look fuzzy?
Maybe.
Krysta, thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
Just
If you were just a reality away from someone, like just almost close enough to touch, like let's say there's a wall behind you, and that wall is the edge of this reality. If you could see through it, what would the people in the other reality look like? Would they look like phosphor dots?
Yeah.
So me saying there are levels to reality, doesn't that seem to fit, correlate there? Just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see where you would come up with that. Not necessarily sure that you needed to try to take credit for that being proof to back up your realities.
I'm not trying to take credit. I am merely attempting to point out that it does kind of track.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing, was it does kind of track. Yeah, and to be honest, I bring these things up to YouTube because if it doesn't track, you guys will shoot that idea down
Yeah, we will.
in a heartbeat. You guys have no fear nor care when it comes to Dad, you're so wrong. You're just or Honey, you're wrong. I love you, but you're wrong. You guys don't let me have any illusions about anything. So,
well, I mean, because your illusions tend to be stuff like the letter A was created because it looked like an upside down cow, and I mean, just
okay. To be fair, Gallagher thought of that first. I just borrowed.
Yeah, well, messing with your kid like that, just not right.
So, what are some other things that we have covered this year? Well, we covered the Fouke Monster, like I said. Missouri Haunts, the Warnell House. We talked about dragons and the folklore surrounding them.
Mr. Swope.
Yeah.
Mr. Swope and Dr. Hyde.
Yeah.
I think that was one of my favorite ones this year.
We talked about those with powers beyond ordinary people. And Graveyard Tales did the same thing. And we actually kind of touched on different points. It was kind of cool.
That was definitely cool.
We talked about the Greys. We talked about Slender Man.
We did talk about Slender Man.
And there was a Slender Man sighting, actually several, in 2021.
Were there?
Yep.
That's wild.
Now, okay, the story I picked actually happened in 2014, but again, it was one of those stories that was only dropped out in 2021.
Okay.
And 3 friends are on a sleepover on a Friday night. They were a bunch of kids, older kids, adventurous, getting themselves in trouble that they didn't have an easy way of getting out of. That's those sort of kids.
Yeah.
They wake up early on Saturday morning, somewhere between 7 and 8 a.m. Their parents, who have brought them out there, are asleep in the cabin like good people. So, these kids take off, right? Early morning, let their parents sleep, mostly just so they can do what they want, right?
Okay, so already I don't believe this story just because whoever heard of a bunch of teenage kids getting up early on a weekend morning?
No. Just no, unless we're talking about me, then I get up around 5 or 6 in the morning. That has nothing to do with anything, though.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So they leave, and they go play near these train tracks. Now, I guess there hasn't been a train on these tracks in a while, and there's really not very many tracks left. I mean, it's just a few feet of old railroad track.
Gotcha.
And so it's about a 10-minute walk from the house. And so they're walking by these tracks. And it's on the side of a drag called Route 993.
Hmm.
So that you're walking on the shoulder of 993 for maybe 50 feet. And then there's a post office for Ardara, and right across from this post office is a bridge onto Ledger Road. Or Leger Road, Leger. I'm not sure how they pronounce it. So they go over the bridge, which has been shut down for years, and once you cross the bridge, there's this little cut in the woods that loops you back around to the train tracks.
Gotcha.
And so they just looped back around to the tracks, where they're sort of in this like bowl. And so one of them looks up and sees what at first he thinks is a shadow up on one of the hills.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this bowl they're in, you're down at the bottom, so you really can see anything, right? If anything's coming at you, you're going to see it.
Sure.
Unless it comes from under you. So they see this shadow, right? And they're looking at this shadow, and then one of them notices it's moving.
Mm.
And that's when he like gets everybody else's attention. Well, they all turn around, and the thing is weird. It's lurching, and that's when one of them goes, "Oh my God, it's Slender Man!" And right about that point, they all turn tail and run back to the cabin because that's what you do.
Well, yeah.
So it's 2014.
Yep, that's scary. I can see where that would freak you out a little bit. I don't know that they actually saw Slender Man, but...
Well, it's like we talked about the tulpas. If enough people believe, does that make something real? And there are a lot of people who believe in Slender Man.
You know.
So, that was interesting. Let's see, what else we talked about this year? We've talked about the Jersey Shore shark attacks from 1916.
Mm-hmm.
Another episode I liked very much. The Scape War Swamp Monster, which we will revisit when we do North Carolina or South Carolina cryptids with Drunk Theory in February.
Yay, I'm looking forward to that.
Me too. We did Krysta's birthday show, which was Scares in the Woods.
Yes, and that was a great show.
We did The Curse of Tutankhamun. We did UFOs, aliens, and aliens in Lake Baical.
You know what other show I really liked that I just remembered?
What?
The genie show that we did.
The Gin. Showing the Gin. Yes.
Yeah, that was a really good show.
Well, now, interestingly, in Lake Baical this year, there have been dozens of UFO sightings.
Yeah, I've been hearing that about Lake Baical.
Also, a satellite photo seems to show an anomaly on the bottom of a part of Lake Baical, which could be an underwater base of some kind.
Wow.
It's this circular anomaly down on the bottom of the lake, and they don't know what it is. why it would be circular, because there's very little in nature that is actually circular.
Strange.
Yeah. The only thing I can think of is maybe it's something man-made, like a tire that's been down there for a while, but then I don't know they'd be... I mean, this thing would have to be huge for them to be able to see it from a satellite photo.
You would think.
So, what has a tire that's that big that you could see it from space?
Right. Exactly.
So, that's kind of interesting. We talked about Fort Osage, another show I liked, if only because we actually got to go to
Yeah, it
Fort...
was a great show. It was.
That was my favorite show.
Aww.
We also talked about alien big cats, which there's been another development in that Hawaii has started reporting. Because Hawaii apparently does not have feral cats. I mean, it might have feral, formerly domesticated house cats, but nothing wild. And yet people have been reporting panthers there like crazy this year, which,
Wow.
and they get told all the time, we don't have cats like that in Hawaii. Well, apparently Maui and Oahu has something there because people are seeing it.
Maybe there's people who are coming to the islands with exotic pets or...
That's the theory that everybody has is, well, it's exotic pets. But I don't know anybody who has a cougar. And I know lots of people. I mean, I've traveled all over this country, and I've never met anyone who has a cougar. It's like the kid that got his arm bitten off by his uncle's tiger. One, I would never, ever let that kid hang out with his uncle again. And two, it was probably that one guy, the Tiger King. Probably him. So we also covered Skinwalker Ranch this past year.
We did talk about Skinwalker Ranch, and I know that you're a fan.
I'm a fan of the show. I don't know if I'm a fan of Skinwalker Ranch. I know that there's something happening there that I can't put my finger on. I know that UFOs have been seen there as recently as August. I know that the guys that are at Skinwalker Ranch studying the place right now have totally changed their tune for the most part because these scientists were brought in to study this stuff. And every time they try to study, things go wonky on.
Yep.
And it's like, there's a source of power about 60 feet in the air, but they can't figure out what it is. Anytime they try to test it, their things fail. They have a place where a cow just wandered over and died, and now no cow will go anywhere near that place. Something funky is going on there.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, and that intrigues me, but I mean, it's one of those places that has what they call high strangeness. And we don't talk about that too much on this program because there's very few places where you run into that. But this is one of them. I mean, they have a scientist there, a guy that, when I first came across him, all he did was talk how science can explain this and science can explain that.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's on Skinwalker Ranch just losing his mind every week because none of the things he plans to test work. And it's not because they're buying substandard equipment, it's that it all works great until they get it on the ranch and try to use it. And then whatever is there doesn't want to be measured or quantified, and it avoids it.
Fair enough.
So, it's a crazy, crazy place.
But that kind of describes most of the world in 2021, if we're going to be honest. I mean, COVID and vaccines and testing and more vaccines.
I get what you're trying to say, but the thing is, that's people. That's people reacting